Good evening. I would like to call to order the Keizer City Council in the regular session. It is Tuesday, June 20th, 2023, and ask our city recorder to please call roll.
Councilor Reed.
Here.
Councilor Hessman.
Here.
Councilor Kohler.
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here.
Council President Starr.
Here.
Councilor Duran.
Here.
And Councilor Cross.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. If you were able, I ask you to rise and all please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. It is my pleasure to introduce this evening a special presentation by Dr. Satya Chandragiri. At our last council meeting, Emerson Carrillo, who is here tonight, brought up the issue that we are all facing in our community of issues about mental health and particularly for suicide. I did not want to discuss that here because none of us on this panel are experts, but Dr. Chandragiri is, and can also give us information on how we can be proactive allies and helping our community move forward in discussing a very difficult, timely, and essential issue. Dr. Chandragiri, thank you so much for being here tonight. The floor is yours.
Good evening. Honorable Mayor, Council President, and councillors, and community members. Thank you very much for allowing me to come and share. I'm a board-certified psychiatrist, and I'm also a Salem Keizer School Board Director, an elected person. I really appreciate this is a very important topic, and during this presentation, if anybody gets triggered or feel uncomfortable, there are some resources we'll be discussing during this presentation, which will be important. So having said that, I just want to briefly say, I don't want to spend much time about the gravity of the situation, but more on what are the steps we can take, what are the resources we can take moving forward. And I'll be touching upon some of those points today. I left behind a bunch of resources as my submission, which I couldn't email them because of the file size. So it's in the hard drive, in the desktop, so that could be my submission as part of this presentation. So with that said, youth mental health and suicide prevention is a broad topic. In 2018, Marion County lost 20 youth to suicide. When I say youth, it's below 24 years old. And that is also the year where suicide became the leading cause of death in ages 10 to 24. It overtook motor vehicle accidents or single vehicular accidents. And the numbers are often about 2 years behind. What we get from the Oregon Health Authority is about 2 years behind. It's not as simple as real-time data, even though there are a lot of reporting requirements. Why it's important? Because often in this age group, it usually presents as clusters. And it's all changed over time with two important things happened. One, we had the pandemic and all the things closed, schools closed, and essentially everything closed. And the second thing, we are also facing an epidemic of opioid epidemic. So these two are really important variables which has accelerated and made the problem worse than what it was before. Often it shows up as overdose on opiates or street opiates or various prescription pills. And it really muddies the picture, but it's really important to look at it as post-COVID. All it has done is it has exacerbated the pre-existing, pre-COVID problems. So when you talk about suicide, mental health and suicide prevention, it's really important to recognize what the Surgeon General's statement. It's almost mental health problems in youth today, childhood mental health is in a crisis proportion. The second important thing is the childhood is fast disappearing, like the childhood what we would imagine was needed for a lot of developmental stages to come through. So we are having younger and younger age group exposed to serious drugs of addiction, the amount of stress and all kinds of social issues are impinging on them. So it's essentially what a lot of these adult problems are spilling over, massive trauma, generational trauma, and various challenges are adding to this problem. So when you think of suicide, I like to look at it as not just a mental health problem, it is mental health, public health, and various social variables that together play a role. And when we talk of a completed suicide, it's often the end result of these multiple factors. And with that, I just wanted to open this to say there are two things that have happened. One, there is a nationwide recognition that mental health is an important problem. Before, it was not so cool to talk about it. It was not cool to talk about suicide and suicide prevention. And now, as Americans, we are talking more about it. We are recognizing it. We have got the support from the federal government all the way down to local governments and local agencies, which is a big change, So that is another important factor. And right now, close to 94% of Americans believe that suicide prevention is possible. Suicide is a preventable condition. And I really believe that suicide is a preventable condition. But for that to happen, we have a lot of work to do. And so suicide prevention becomes everybody's business. So it's not just in the office of a psychiatrist or mental health providers or hospitals. That's the old way of looking at it. But now we need to start thinking of each and everybody having the necessary skill set and ability to be there, to play a role. Just like in airport, you will see a defibrillator machine and people are taught CPR and anybody can intervene if somebody codes. And we really have to start thinking in terms of zero suicide as an aspirational outcome, and then start thinking how we design our systems, how we educate our communities, what kind of policies we have. Anything short of that, we will not be able to achieve this because there will always be gaps. The second way to understand this is to think in terms of a Swiss cheese model. We don't want all the holes lining up, yet we want something to intercept them. So it's going to take a collection of policies, practices, procedures, so that we'll have to start thinking in terms of no wrong door. They could show up in different ways, and yet we all have the skill set to interrupt from all the holes lining up so that it leads to a suicide as a completed event. So with that, I just want to share a few slides, mostly to kind of discuss the topic. So there are a lot of work has been done. There is a lot of literature available. So we need to start thinking in terms of what did COVID do? COVID disrupted the attachment. And with that attachment, a lot of our risk for suicide has gone up. Because one of the things that protects people from completed suicide is a sense of belonging or connectedness. And overnight, for a variety of reasons, public health reasons, policy reasons, we interrupted that. So that has disproportionately affected younger people, children, kids, college students, and those who were struggling before are struggling even more. It has also brought about all kinds of interesting shifts in their demography. For example, Black youth children are having a much higher rate of completed suicide than pre-COVID. So there are some literally shifts have happened because of this. So this is one thing. So when a Gallup survey was done, Americans believed that post-COVID, COVID has hurt them with their mental health far more than economic impact and physical health. So this is a sad reality, yet a positive opportunity for us to make some changes and leverage on this. And, you know, the warning signs are often telltale. Sometimes we can have high degree of impulsivity in children and youth, so the time between thinking and acting could be very narrow. But most often, there is always the warning signs. It's not that the warning sign was not present. It is because of lack of understanding of the warning signs that we don't see it. And as a result of which, there are a lot of missed opportunity at every level. If you come to think of it, the family members are the ones who are going to spend more time with the child. And if the family members cannot recognize the warning sign and add them up and say, we have to start thinking it as beyond sad. And we really have to start thinking in terms of being fully aware of the warning signs and then start intervening. So for the sake of time, I won't go through all of them, but I just want to leave behind. So this is another this is the Surgeon General's, the previous Surgeon General had talked about different strategies, the 4 different strategies of thinking in terms of suicide prevention at a national level, local level, city level, or local government level. And then he talks about different action steps that one can take. So I got this document, which is also part of the submission which I've made. But it really starts thinking in terms of broad areas. And some of the areas talk about what are some of the broad public health approach we can take. Or, for example, what are some of the ways in which upstream factors we can interrupt? Or when somebody is struggling with suicidal thoughts, how do we take steps to intentionally limit access to lethal means, whether it is prescription pills or an active firearm lying around with a child who is struggling with suicide, or having barricades around a bridge so that people don't jump off. So there are some steps that we can take based on these kind of policies. So it really affects different levels of government, both and private sector. So it just walks you through that. And then there is another important resource I wanted to submit, is the CDC Suicide Prevention Resource for Action. It really talks about preventive policies and what are the measurable outcome, what's the evidence for each of them. And some of them will, has nothing to do with psychiatric practice or a mental health office, but it's going to take a policy level decision at a government level or private sector level so that we can really bring about necessary changes. Just like what you would think of seat belt as an intervention in order to prevent accident-related outcome. So having said that, there's a lot of good work that has been done. Some of them have evidence in support of it. Now, what do we do locally? That's the bigger question, right? So I'm going to leave behind 2 things. One is the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. We have every state has a chapter, and they are able to provide variety of resources. It will cost us nothing, except they will need some space where we can allow them to probably hold their classes so that our community members can do. What can we do as a community? We can really increase awareness. So imagine if we start thinking of Keizer as a suicide-safe city as an outcome. Then start thinking, okay, how many residents live here? How many families live here? What languages are there? And then how can we reach different community and connect them with the resources that they can provide? And that could be a measurable outcome. For example, another example could be, we have so many businesses. What if every business decides to train their employees on gatekeeper training? Just like CPR training, you kind of gatekeeper training. It will probably spend about an hour of their time. But each of those employees will probably go back to their families, and they can become the initial intercept in that Swiss cheese model which I was talking about. So there are ways in which we can leverage and ways in which we can think of our policies, practices, whether we can host some of these classes, that educational program that they offer, it costs nothing for the person who is attending this. Now, there are certain gatekeeper training which will cost something for the material and books, like the QPR, which school district offers. Some of them are a little bit longer, like the assist training that United States Air Force offers. Whereas this Talk Saves Lives, they do offer free for the person who is attending. And not only that, they have trained people. They can also train the trainer. And then we can think in terms of ways in which we can multiply this and kind of scale it up for our community. So this is an example. So they can, again, cater it to depending on age group, depending on certain high-risk target, groups. And so this is just an example of that. And then they also offer a variety of programs like, awareness walks, like Out of Darkness walk, which they offer in Salem. So there are ways in which, as a city, we can think of saying, we can partner with them and have an event. So there are ways in which we can leverage the resources that is available. So this is from the CDC. So I'm going to leave this behind in terms of various strategies and some of the examples of approach. And then we can think, okay, do we have a policy to cover that? So it's a kind of a busy slide, but it's part of the document which I'll be submitting. Now, having said that, in 2018, story didn't end there. So as a school board, at that time, there was a law called Addis Act, which was not yet implemented. So Salem Keizer became one of the first school districts in the state of Oregon to even have a policy on suicide prevention. So before that, close to 200 school districts, there was no policy. So everybody practiced what they thought was the best way. And of course, that leaves lots of gaps in the thing. You can't think of understanding what the need is. How do you scale it up? How do you implement? How do you have oversight, etc.? So our story starts in Salem Keizer. Around 2019, we got the policy before the Addis Act became a law which needed to be implemented. So that way, we had a policy which I submitted a copy of the policy which got, again, revised last year. In 2021, 2019 was initially policy in 2019. And with that, we were able to scale up. We were able to understand. So now all the 5,000 employees are trained in a gatekeeper training. All the 65 schools have access to counseling resources. Now we have a very robust website, which is what I'm going to show you. And I really think it is important for me to show you because our community can really appreciate the information that is available. I wish I had all this information when I was doing my residency training. So if you go to the Salem Keizer website, okay, so you go to student safety and resource information. There's a lot of information here. Then you click on the link, mental wellness and suicide prevention, right? This takes you to a lot of information on suicide crisis hotline, what are some of the resources. And Care Solace is an outsourced, I guess, their company who will help navigate the system and connect if a youth or student or a faculty or anybody wants them connected to mental health resources. So rather than using up the staff time, teachers' time, they're like an agency which will help them connect, navigate. They're not a crisis center, so don't call them. Instead, call 988 or suicide hotline or go to the psychiatric crisis center. But please use them as a way to find resources, like mental health resources, addiction treatment, etc. So they're like the kind of a matchmaking company, a brokerage, which will help you connect. Because the mental health system is pretty complicated. It's not easy to navigate, especially if you have a child or a loved one who is going through crisis. But it is really important for us to go through what all the resources that is available. We have tons of resources available. Now, there are two other things that has happened. In 2022, we have 988. That's a new number. So before we had to call 911, it would probably go through the same triage as law enforcement, etc. Now the 988 is for mental health crisis line. This simultaneously another development is the mobile crisis program, right? They're like the mobile crisis unit. Before it could be either a law enforcement comes in or a ride along program, where the law enforcement and a mental health person rides together. Now we can have a mobile crisis which is purely a mental health response. If the safety risk is not high, then that would be another option that they can. So there are more options that came out of this pandemic and post-pandemic recognition. The second thing is for us to really, then you start thinking in terms of all the resources, the details are there. It is really important for us to familiarize ourselves. I don't think you are able to see my slide. Okay. So this is the one. So if you go to that Salem Keizer website, click on the mental health wellness, then it kind of takes you to all the resources, 988. Then it gives you the local crisis number, and it walks you through Oregon Youth Line, Polk County Crisis Line, Safe Oregon. That's another app that is a state police, is connected with state police. You can report anonymously, or you can report saying something is happening. It could be for suicide, it could be for bullying, violence, any other threat, etc. You can have an app, you can via website, you can call them on the phone. There are different ways in which you can report 24/7. And what they will do, they will triage it. They are actually located outside the state. They will triage it and they will immediately inform our school district. We are signed up with that. So that is one way to report, right? Right now, they are doing it in English and Spanish. And one of the questions that we asked them is, how about other languages? We've got 110 languages. So by the time the kids come back after summer break, they're going to have a way in which the website you can translate in different languages. So our question, they took it seriously. Then there are also certain, as we said, the risk factor is high when the sense of belonging and connectedness goes down, or they're at risk for bullying. They're all kind of connected. And this is really important because so there are some children, say LGBTQ+, and certain other, gender minority students, they have a very high risk. Why? Because they don't have a sense of connectedness, either with the family or with the school or with their peers. They're high risk for bullying, etc. And they're a high risk for suicide, right? So it's really important to recognize that and to really create ways in which, so that's where the Trevor Project has been a very important development. So there are ways in which you can call, and there are people who are very affirming of gender minority and the minority stress they go through, or not able to connect with their family or the school or peers. And there are ways in which we can get help. And then, of course, several of our children, several of our staff members are veterans. You call the same 988 or the suicide prevention crisis line. Press 1 if you're a veteran. So there are ways in which you can get help. So when you start thinking in terms of suicide prevention, think in terms of crisis intervention and what are things you can do upstream. Because suicidal thoughts and the risk goes up. It comes like a little wave. It'll come and go, come and go. So it's really important to essentially buy time and provide the necessary safety so that they can ride through that wave of the suicide thoughts and risk. Make sure they don't have access to any means during that time. Because once you have means plus the thought plus lack of support or safety net, that becomes a very high risk cocktail. So the thing is, during that time, we really want to make sure those three things don't come together: the thought and the safety net and the access to means. So we really don't want those three coming together at that moment. Eventually they'll come out of it. But in that moment, we have to think in terms of not putting those three things together. Now that is one part of it. The other part is how do we intervene upstream so that we start bringing down the risk and bringing down the need for this kind of crisis intervention. Sometimes you have to have both. It's like, changing oil while you're driving your car. You need both. You can't gut the car, right? It's the same way. And that's where we have a host of other resources in our Salem Keizer School website, what we can do. The most important take-home lesson in my business is anything that is speakable is bearable. Talking about suicide, asking questions about thoughts of suicide is not going to increase the risk. In fact, they feel a sense of relief somebody asked. Silence kills. That's the saying I often use in my business is that anything you don't speak, actually the risk goes up. So it's really important for all of us. So one of the take-home things, we also have various links. Essentially, it's almost like drinking from a fire hydrant. So much of information is there. But one of the really ways in which, as a policymaker, we can do is start asking, okay, can we have all elected officials in our county or in your city go through the gatekeeper training? Either the free one through American Foundation of Suicide Prevention or the QPR, or if you have time. Can all our employees from the district go through, our city employees go through that? So, because a lot of times we don't realize the law enforcement is a very high, they carry very high risk with them. So, for example, I was talking to the sheriff in Walaba County. So he was talking about, the small counties don't have much resources to train their things. So they have a very close working relationship with the county mental health, and together they have been doing a lot of work together. So that's an example of how we can start taking steps. And can we host a walk, for example, out of darkness? Can we create some space where American Foundation of Suicide Prevention can come and hold a free class training? Or can we train the trainer if somebody wants to champion that? All this will send a very positive message to the community that as leadership, elected officials, we take this seriously. And we will make changes. We will make our city as a safe city where we can really have the aspirational goal of zero suicide. What if we start thinking in terms of measurable outcome that, okay, can we have all of our community members trained in the basic QPR or a gatekeeper training or one of the free ones? Can we connect with businesses, faith community, churches, etc., to become the training site? So these are some ways in which we can start taking our leadership opportunity and start thinking in terms of how can we implement suicide prevention is everyone's business, and we all can be the intercept in that Swiss cheese model. So I just want to leave with this. There's tons of resources. There are ways in which we need help to get it to every door, every person, every community member, every child. And even youth can play a role. Students can become trained. In addition to this, there is mental health first aid. There are so many resources. Now we need to get it out. So with that, I'm open to answering any questions. Otherwise, I like this topic. I'll keep talking.
Well, first of all, a huge thank you for coming tonight and sharing this very, very important information. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
We noticed our Human Resources Director taking a lot of notes. And with Council's consensus, we will circle back with Human Resources, our city manager. We do have a space. This is our community home, our living room. Our community center is about community and talk about those kinds of partnerships and opportunity. As I said at our last meeting to Mr. Carrella, there is every single person in this room, every person has been impacted by suicide, family, friend, neighbor, and to know that we can be part of the solution is very empowering and comforting. but to do it in a way where we can have a higher confidence that we can make a difference is very important. I really appreciate you coming. We'll work with our city staff to post links to the school district website and information. There's no point in us doing a separate one when you've already done the work. And I'd like to do that. Any questions? I'm going to start with Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I wanted to point out that, first of all, thank you so much for all that you've done with this. This is a fantastic resource, this website on the district webpage. I just wanted to let everybody know that at McNary this year, we had a two-part advisory lesson on mental health. One was basically defining the problem, and the other was directing students to this resource. And what kind of came out of that was a lot of kids tend to go to their friends if they have friends about these things. So empowering students to be able to say, hey, here are some resources that you can go to is really important, because, you know, we have such wonderful resources, but, you know, you're not going to have your average kid scrolling through the district webpage unless they know what they're looking for. And so I really appreciate, you know, McNary's leadership in making good use of these resources, and, you know, just the fact that they're there and is a wonderful thing. And we even did some practicing with the 988 hotline. Kids were on there. I mean, and we gave them a little bit of a heads up saying, okay, we're going to be, you know, keeping you busy. So anyway, there was that practice. And, you know, a lot of it was, you know, the instant messaging and that kind of thing, which is what the kids do. Anyway, so that happened. And so I just want you to know that that's happening at that level. And I love that we are also talking about this on many, many different levels. And I think that that's will make us a stronger, more strongly able to support our youth in this respect. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilor, sorry.
It's okay, it'll come to you, Madam Mayor.
Councilor Roseman.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Chandragiri. You've mentioned a lot of different best practices that go into this. You've been in this community for decades. You have an intimate knowledge of how it is that the school district works and how a lot of the systems work within Salem and Keizer. What can Keizer do differently to foment some of these positive changes? Please, we are happy to accept any and all ideas, and a public forum is the perfect opportunity for this. What can Keizer do differently to be more supportive of kids in this time?
I think you did, the first thing is to talk about it in public, which is very important, because to me, that's the way to make changes. And then, you know, get this resources, best practices, because, you know, we can define the problem. That's like writing the same presenting complaint, chief complaint again and again, but that's not going to solve the problem. Repeating the problem is not going to solve the problem, nor blaming the problem is going to solve the problem. We really have to start taking and saying, how do we do in a macro level, meso level, and micro level? Micro level could be a, you know, parent and child and doctor and patient. Or meso level could be like a department level, okay? So you start thinking in terms of breaking down and saying, what are some of the things you do at a bigger level? You know, one of the suggestions could be if you could have a committee consisting of elected officials, some city officials, community members, students, you know, faith leaders, and start thinking in terms of, okay, this is the problem. It's not secret anymore. And how do we, as a community, start thinking in terms of taking some of the best practices that is already there and say, how do we roll it out? How do we implement it? How do we scale it up? And how do we measure? So that's an example of what we can do. Connecting with American Foundation of, the reason I use American Foundation of Suicide Prevention is they're all freebies. You know, they have done a lot of groundwork. They are hungry to make those connections. And each one of us as elected officials, we know our community. And now if we can connect them and provide them the infrastructure like a space, that's all they are asking. They will even bring cookies and donuts and make sure they will provide all those local things. They need a space. They say, even if you have 10 people, we'll send a volunteer. If they don't want to come, we'll do it via Zoom. So they're really hungry to get this message. There are really dedicated people. So that's an example of what we can do. We can use our social media and other ways in which we communicate with our community at every level, think in terms of a cross-cutting principle. At every stage and every level, every department, this could be discussed as a suicide prevention. Because pretty much every employee, most of them will have children at home, right? They might have been affected, their loved ones. So that will send a very positive message. Because if there is a complete non-fatal suicide attempt, there is an economic factor to it. Whether the loved one is there, we are going to pay short-term disability, long-term disability, it costs healthcare expenses, and there are so many, person is not coming to work and somebody else has to work. So you really think in terms of it's a win-win for everybody if we start addressing the mental health and suicide prevention. Because in terms of lost productivity, etc. So you can really use that as a way to talk to a business and say, 1 hour, let's get all our employees to feel. For example, construction industry has a very high risk of suicide. So who would have thought of that, right? Construction industry. But then if you look at it after pandemic, what happened? The construction stopped and everything stopped. So they are probably going through economic stresses and all that adds up. So if you go talk to the construction industry, are you able to do it? We'll have a very, so there are ways in which we can be very strategic in thinking in terms of not just policy, how do you implement it? How do you leverage partnership with different things? Then we also have Mid-Valley Council on Suicide Prevention. That's like a collection of different agencies who can do. So the goal is to think in terms of a cross-cutting principle across top to bottom, bottom to top, every other way, where it doesn't matter what way they come in, whether it is law enforcement or county jail or hospitals, or because not everybody who is struggling with suicide is going to go to crisis center or hospitals. So we really have to start thinking in terms of no wrong door approach. Every place you use the same cross-cutting principles. There is no downside of training people in suicide prevention and mental health. Did I answer your question, Council? Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Again, our deep appreciation, thanks for your service and your professional assistance here, and we look forward to working with you going forward. Thank you so much, Dr. Chandragiri.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Well, we have all just gotten a great deal of food for thought. We are going to shift now and conduct the rest of the business on our agenda tonight. And I look forward to following up with our human resources and city manager on steps forward for not just the city, but also how we partner with our partner agencies in the community and business organizations as well. So we're going to now go to committee reports, and the first up is the Volunteer Coordinating Committee recommendations for appointment, the Keizer Public Arts Commission, and the Youth Liaisons for the Public Arts Commission and Keizer Planning Commission. This goes to, who's that? Is that Ms. Davis? All right.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The Volunteer Coordinating Committee met on June 8th to review and interview applicants for openings on the Keizer Public Arts Commission and for 2 different youth liaison positions. The Arts Commission has 2 openings. With these appointments, the group will have a full slate of members. The Volunteer Coordinating Committee is recommending the appointment of Derek Bish and Marilyn Wood to positions 2 and 5, and their term would expire on June 30th, 2026. And they also are recommending to appoint Catherine Klein as the Youth Liaison to the Keizer Public Arts Commission and Angelica Sarmiento as the Youth Liaison to the Keizer Planning Commission, and they will be for the school year starting in September 23. So the committee staff is recommending you accept their recommendations and appoint these people.
Thank you very much. A working microphone. Any questions on the staff report or recommendations? Council President Starr.
I move the City Council accept the recommendation of the Volunteer Coordinating Committee and appoint Derek Bish and Marilyn Wood to positions 2 and 5 respectively on the Keizer Public Arts Commission, terms expiring June 30th, 2026, and appoint Catherine Klein as Youth Liaison to the Keizer Public Arts Commission and Angelica Sarmiento as Youth Liaison to the Keizer Planning Commission for the term starting September 1, 2023 and ending May 31, 2024.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to accept the recommendations of the Volunteer Coordinating Committee as read. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed signify by saying no. Hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously. And a huge thanks to everyone who is volunteering to serve on these important committees and commissions. We are still looking for more youth who would like to be liaisons to committees and commissions. And I would like to remind everybody that all of our committee and commission meetings, just like the City of Keizer council meetings, are all open to the public. You don't have to be appointed to show up. Although I showed up at budget and here I am. So take that message as you will. With that, I'd like to go to other committee updates, and I'm going to start with Mr. Matt Lawyer, to talk about parks, planning, and Columbia Creek watershed. You don't wear many hats, do you, sir?
Got to. There's a lot of sun out there recently. Brief 10 minutes on each topic, so just bear with me here real quick. For the record, Matt Lawyer, Keizer. I'm going to start with Parks Board. That was a joke. I'm not going to do 10 minutes for each, by the way. So we met on, I think it was the 13th of June for the Parks Board, and we had a couple people come and provide public testimony. Carolyn Homan from West Keizer Neighborhood Association came in and thanked the board for some funds to do some ground cover at Willamette Manor Park. I kind of goofed up. I don't necessarily know how to read calendars all the time, but invited some former Parks colleagues to come in and celebrate Debbie Lockhart. I thought this month was her last Parks Board meeting. It turns out it's actually next month, which is fine. But Richard Walsh and Dylan Duran, former Parks Board members, came and just provided some comments for Debbie. And I fulfilled my promise, which was at some point before Debbie retired, I was going to give her a large jar of the bark chips from the Big Toy. If you were there, you know why. And if you don't, it's because Debbie was in charge basically of making sure that all of those bark chips got to where they needed to be. And if you got in her way, so help you. She was very kind to encourage you to get out of her way. I'll make that up in one way or another. It was from the bottom. I don't think they're going to be used for much, but I'll figure out a way to make good on that. We had one grant last week, I guess it was last week, and that's for the Peggy and Jerry Moore Community Garden. Peggy was asking for $200 to do some hanging plants and kind of make things look pretty there. Kind of a no-brainer. They do such a great job there at the community garden, just behind us over near the skate park. Great things happening in the parks as always. Robert said there's some really good momentum going in on the construction of the new Ben Miller Playground, and the shade sails are in. The splash fountain at the time was going to open, but now it is open, which is great. And we are happy to report that the 20 picnic tables done by Keizer Rotary were also complete, so Mark Keller will be able to close out that grant. And there's a significant uptick in graffiti removal, causing parks to have to work on that nearly every single day. And so really unfortunate there, but Robert and his team are doing a really good job of trying to stay on top of those things. I think that's all I got on parks. If there's any questions, unless there isn't, I'll move on to planning.
All right, any questions on parks? All right, planning it is.
Great, thank you. So on June 14th, we met for the Planning Commission, and we had a really interesting, I always get excited when people come and talk to the Planning Commission because we're one of the most exciting committees to come and watch.
What?
I got Shannon to laugh. I'm taking that. It's a win.
Victory.
David Dempster came in and talked a little bit about some of his concerns, and I think these are concerns we've largely heard routinely from the traffic bikeways, and I always get that committee wrong. But specifically around Shamawa, and at the time, we weren't necessarily thinking about the work that was going to be done on Shamawa, I think is fairly soon going to, Verta, that's going to be fairly soon happening. Concerns, again, about some of the parking that happens near the Little League fields and some of those other areas. You know, he was sort of presenting from his lens, but also from the committee lens, and just kind of encouraging him to stay tuned on that. And, you know, if there's other things that come up, particularly on any projects, to just let that committee know, and, you know, we'll see how we can help if we can. There's not a lot we can do from the Planning Commission perspective, but we had a quick public hearing on the administrative action fees and land use fees. There was a slight miscalculation on the part of somebody. I'm not going to name it who it was, but it was a very quick update, and so we got through that and recommended acceptance from the council on that. We talked a little bit about the walkable mixed-use area and some of the things that Shane's been working on, particularly around the CFAC rules and grants. And then we actually had a little bit of a kind of an interesting conversation generally about, okay, what else can the Planning Commission do? And so, you know, I think that there's going to be some discussions that Shane and City Attorney Johnson are going to have, but, you know, there's definitely an interest in the Planning Commission of doing some other things, and we don't know what that looks like, but I think we've kind of had enough of the mandatory legislative amendments. So it is what it is, right? We'll see what City Attorney Johnson and Shane come up with. But yeah, really good, productive meeting overall. And I always appreciate people coming and talking to the Planning Commission. And Mr. Dempster, it was great to see him. I hadn't seen him in a while, so it was good to have him there. So any questions on Planning Commission? Yes.
Councilor
I
Husband.
guess I shouldn't be addressing that. Sorry, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Matt, thank you so much for bringing all this to us. I'm the council liaison for traffic safety bike ped. If you don't remember the name, it's fine. We go through it about 6 times a meeting there anyway. But David filled me in on the conversation too. While we have you in this opportunity, you know, let's not waste it. How can we be a little bit better in communicating some of the planning committee and the transportation safety bike ped committee projects, and have that cross communication be better to serve the city generally?
Madam Mayor, Councilor Hessman, anecdotally, my joke is always write a really big scary headline in the newspaper to make people show up and listen. There's not really an answer, right? I think that for the most part, my observation as a planning commissioner for as many years as I have been is that unless it's in their backyard, for most people really don't engage. And I hate to treat it that way, but it is a tough thing. I think that for the most part, again, my observation has been that people won't engage until something bad happens, at which point it's probably a little bit too late. But in terms of projects and getting those things out there, my best recommendation, honestly, might be to go and get out in front of neighborhood associations a little more often, a little more frequently, but then just continuing to encourage people to show up and be part of the process. I mean, I think that Keizer Times does a fair job trying to encourage people to read the articles, and we have everything published on the websites in terms of the materials. We stream all of our meetings. That's goal one, literally. So I don't have a good answer for you.
Yeah, one, definitely understand getting in front of the neighborhood associations. That's been a TSBP topic as well, trying to make that communication better. 2, I interned under Lyndon and Scott McAllister, so I completely am sympathetic to the big headline. Big scary headlines absolutely work.
Yeah.
That's not going to stop. David did mention to me that he spoke to the Planning Commission about some of the newer developments and some of the potential traffic repercussions of those. Now, I wasn't necessarily here. You've been in your spot
Right.
longer than I've been in mine. So I'm coming into this a little bit late. Nonetheless, the TSBP, in my experience, has been rightly and immediately concerned about any new project they hear about. The first question that comes to all their minds is, what's this going to do for the traffic?
Yep.
And while they do have specific projects in mind, we have the transportation system plan a lot of good stuff on paper. The concern, as I see it, is making sure that that coalesces a little bit quickly with some of the bigger planning initiatives that we have coming up. All of this to say, again, is there any better way to be proactive or to cross-pollinate? And I don't necessarily have an immediate answer here. Yeah. Could always use the help.
Madam Mayor, Councilor Hessman, I think part of it, between planning stages and things actually going in development, can sometimes be years, right? In that case, I think it's very important to rely on the expertise of our Public Works Department and the various agencies that represent those interests. Things change, right? So what was true 5 years ago may not necessarily be true when an actual project goes into implementation. So again, relying on the experts is very important. The other piece of it is if it's business related or something related to a specific area that maybe isn't residential, leaning into the chamber and having those conversations with our chamber experts, because they're out there, they have greeters, they have their newsletter, they're very robust in terms of getting that information out there. I think it's just a matter of looking at all of our possible resources. But if there's an opportunity where there is some cross-pollination, I think that there's never been a case where anybody on the committee you represent is shy about coming in and talking to the Planning Commission. I always encourage that as much as possible. So not really any good answers other than we've got the most amazing staff and people who are willing to reach in and do the hard work. So.
Okay, thank you. I'll just bring that back to them. And for the record, Mike Griffin from Public Works has been the liaison for TSBP, and Mike Griffin has been a great asset to those meetings from what I understand. He's 100% prepared, has answers to all the questions that come up during the meeting. Mike's fantastic. So we received a lot of good work from Public Works, and as much as we can continue to build relationships and in some case build that muscle, you're absolutely right. These things do take months and years down the road. We'll work together. We'll be a part of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Clackamas Creek Watershed Council.
Yeah, so this is going to be brief. It's going to be fun, right? So first I have to say thank you, Madam Mayor, for calling me out for not doing my job and getting Soggy Day going in time for Earth Day. Woo! But also Executive Director for the Keizer Chamber, Corey Fuller, also called me out and said, hey, why isn't this happening? So I said, great, let's make it happen. And what ended up happening, I think, was accidentally perfect, if not altogether intentionally perfect. Historically, we've averaged about 150 or so participants over the course of the day. And when you get the clawing mechanism of the Keizer Chamber in there starting to advertise things, I don't think we ever could have imagined how many people we ended up having. So first, I have to say thank you to the Chamber, to the City of Keizer, of course, for allowing this to happen and waiving the fees. We've got a host of sponsors. I guarantee you I'm going to forget somebody, but I'm going to try not to. Keizer Rotary, Northwest Dental Arts, the Chamber, Santiago Lopez with Sancho's Tacos, A to Z Party Rentals, Gracie's Sweet Treats, Chrysalis Balloons, which is face painting, A to Z Party Rental, Keizer United, I won't forget that one, and
Willamette Valley Bank.
Say again?
KBZY.
KBZY, thank you, and AJ's Hideaway. So to paint a picture, we didn't do anything different. We did the exact same thing that we've done every year. And I will tell you that the Gracie's Sweet Treats ended up putting in somewhere about 550 ice cream cones. So Sancho's Tacos, we planned last year for 200. We did about 150. He ended up giving some food, I think, away to Samonka House. This year, they planned for 150. We were done in 48 minutes. If you were waiting in line for tacos and towards the end of the line, chances are you probably were one of the last people. But it was amazing. Mark Callier and Chris Callier, again, super supportive of those folks. They come out and they do the boat ride every year. Jeff Anderson standing on the boat dock all day long. He did about 111 people on the boat, which was incredible. Austin from Public Works came out, and from what I understand, he had the Robert Johnson experience, and if you don't know what that means, he literally stood there in the backhoe the entire time and probably didn't get a chance to stand up until we were all done. So just really appreciate everybody coming out. It was such an amazing Memorial Day event. We had a little bit of the rain, and I think, Madam Mayor, you tried to spoil the soggy day for us.
Almost.
No, but it was great. It was such a beautiful day, and so many people came out just wandering through the park, and hey, what is this? Well, come on out, it's free. So just want to thank everybody for making that happen and just really, really appreciate the wonderful things Keizer can do when we all come together as a community to do awesome things, so.
It was a lot of fun. Counselor Kohler
Keizer Fire Department and.
Yeah, I knew I was going to forget
and
somebody.
police.
Police Department.
Yep.
Yep, Keizer Fire, Keizer Police. And then we actually had the Marine Board come out. They gave out some life jackets. And I'm probably going to forget some other folks. But it was a brilliant day. So much fun.
All right. So, once is a mistake, twice is a tradition,
Yes, ma'am.
to quote our old friend Jeff Gaines.
That's right.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, and appreciate all of the updates.
Yep, my pleasure.
All right. Tammy Coons wants to talk about Greater Northeast Keizer Neighborhood Association.
Hi, everybody. I hate this thing. All right, Tammy from Keizer. It's not really about the association, it's about us all. What do we have to do to get our brochures inside those doors by the utility building, where we pay our bills?
Mr. Brown?
They're looking at you.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor and Council. Are you referring to the Neighborhood Association?
Yep, neighborhood
Brochures?
association brochures, so that they're more accessible for the folks that come in and pay their bills, just people coming in.
Yeah, that should be a pretty easy
Okay.
task. So,
All right.
Perfect.
I haven't heard the request yet, so thanks.
Okay.
That's because it's new. We came up with it at the birthday party.
Okay.
That's what happens. You get all those great minds together in some sunshine and everybody having fun. Ideas flow, right?
Exactly. All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you much. Anybody else for public comment? I'm out of blue slips. I know. Oh, I'm sorry. We're about to start public comment. My bad. That was committee reports. Anybody here for committee reports? I know I just skipped ahead, right? Yes, I've got them here. They're right here. So we'll go to public comment. This time is provided for citizens to address the council on any matters other than those on the agenda scheduled for public hearing. We have one public hearing this evening. That's the certification of lighting district assessments. Before we go to the spoken comments, we have written comments to acknowledge from Shannon Priam and William Smaldone, representatives of Southeast Keizer Neighborhood Association, Vision Zero for Salem Keizer with SCAT's MTSAP update.
Southeast Salem.
Oh, Southeast Salem. My bad. Okay, so they wrote a letter for, I'm not used to Salem commenting on Keizer, but there it is. So they're from the Southeast Salem Neighborhood Association on Vision Zero. Bruce and Sue Purdy, residents of Keizer, on Keizer Little League, and then Catherine Lincoln, resident of Keizer, on the City Hall trellis repair. So, okay. And I know that will be addressed later on in the agenda, so I'm going to go ahead with Carol Dorfler. Always good to see you, to talk to us about traffic and speed limit signs.
I'm trying. Good evening, Madam Mayor, councilors, and staff. Carol Dorfler, a very long-time resident in Keizer. I am really, okay, back up. A few months ago, I went to the Traffic Safety Bikeway Pedestrian Committee meeting to talk about the Verta Lane situation and the traffic and the speed limits. And we had quite a long conversation. I believe Mr. Hussman can attest to that. And I want to bring it. I know you're all aware. I know you are all aware of what's going on out there. But I really hope that it'll come from here to the forefront so that we can get something done as a city before some child or some person is killed out there. It is a very bad situation. It is a conundrum to me why from the Parkway to the roundabout is 35 miles an hour, and from the Parkway to Lock Haven is 25 miles an hour. That's just doesn't make any real common sense, okay? The other piece of the whole thing is that the beginning of this year, the state gave permission to all cities to handle their own speed limits. Now, I did a little research on that. You have to apply. There are like 4 or 5 modalities that have to be written, and I guess an exam at the end. I didn't open them up, but the modalities were there. And I'm just wondering if we can't do that. It's probably laying on Mr. Lawyer's head to do that, but I just think that we need to have that more control. ODOT is like so slammed, they actually admitted it would be 2 to 3 years before they could get around to changing all the requests that they have. And it's a moving request, right? So they get these 5 done, and then 10 more come. So it seems to me it would benefit our Keizer community to get that piece done so that we have control of our own speed limits in our city.
So, ma'am, if I could go to Mr. Brown, he and I were discussing this morning, and some conversations that he and Mr. Lawyer have had, and I want to hand a thank you to you, Neighbor Association, Traffic Safety Bike Ped, and talk about the VERTA between Dearborn and Chemawa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Mr. Lawyer came to me last week to talk about the pedestrian improvements that could be done, and I believe at the end of that conversation was we were going to talk with engineers about the alternatives in that space. But we could include also the speed limit analysis as we do that.
So one of the things we discussed around the speed limit, it didn't make sense. You go into and out of the roundabout and you have different speed limits in, different speed limits out. That doesn't make sense.
No.
That they need to be uniform. Come in 25, go out 25. There's no reason for coming in hot, going out cold, coming in cold, going out hot. It doesn't make any sense, especially with increased density in our usage for all of our roadways, but particularly that area. So to start having that conversation about just making it real simple. 25 in, 25 out, clarity. So you don't have to guess, I can go faster, I can go slower, or you might try, but it's a bad idea. Some front yards near the roundabout have experienced more than once, and we'd like to encourage people to be cognizant that there are people living around that roadway. Thank you. So congratulations. Thank you for raising this, continuing to raise this conversation about how we look at that area. And I really appreciate Mr. Lawyer and Mr. Brown for taking it to the next step to get the information that we need.
I really appreciate it. And the residents in that area are going to really appreciate it too. And I'm sure they're all sitting there looking at this these apartment complex that runs blocks and wondering if they are ever going to be able to get out of their driveways or off of May Street or off of Keizer Road with the increase in the traffic that's obvious. It's going to occur there. I don't know how many units there are, but you figure 1.5 to two cars per unit. It's like, it's kind of mind-boggling. But I thank you, Mr. Lawyer. Thank you, Mr. Brown. I'm anxiously awaiting what happens with your decisions, and hopefully I don't have to come back to this seat again.
That's okay. Keep bringing good ideas. And before I go to Councilor Hussman, I think you know that we have the crossing beacon, scheduled for installation over here on Rickman. I don't know what the date is. for that. That's coming to a crosswalk near us
Soon.
soon.
The schedule is that working?
Eat it,
Kind of?
yeah.
The schedule is to be installed at the end of June, very beginning of July.
Woohoo! Yes,
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
if I
sir.
may, on the speed limits,
yes.
I plan to have a discussion with our engineers about that tomorrow. I reviewed the ODOT requirements. Ms. Dorfler is correct, we have to apply for that. It has to be a registered engineer, signed on to do the
Modalities.
modalities. I will be talking with our city engineer tomorrow to see if they have anybody on staff in their company that has done this and what it would take to get that in place.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, we're seeing a happy dance out here. Counselor Husband.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Lawyer, just a quick follow-up on that. You meet with the city manager tomorrow. You gain a sense of the timeline. Do you expect to be able to apply after meeting with the city manager? Do you expect there to be a time lag in between? What's that look like for you?
Well, I'm meeting with the city engineer, not the city
City
manager.
engineer, sorry.
Okay? And we have to make an application to ODOT. That has to be reviewed and approved by ODOT.
Correct.
So if our engineering firm does not have somebody that's already gone through that process, it's going to take longer. What that timeline is, I have no idea at this point.
Okay. Thank you so much. And apologies for the mix-up.
No
I
worries.
must have bumped my head at some point.
Okay, Counselor Kohler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a real quick congratulations, Carol. I understand you're back on the board of the West Keizer Neighborhood Association, so congratulations.
Something tells me that as a ongoing emeritus, for sure. All right, thank you very much. Julianne Going for talking about dogs at Keizer Rapids Park. Hi.
I just want to say, since it's come back up again about the dog park having the rules about leash dogs, that it's really important. I'm not afraid of dogs. I like dogs as far as that goes, you know, but I would be easily pushed over, or an enthusiastic pup can trip me, and it's just really important. And if we say anything to someone about their dog needs to be on the leash, the rules are posted all over the park, and they say, my dog won't hurt anyone, or something equivalent to that, you know. And they don't understand that I'm not afraid of their dogs, but I just need them on a leash. And so the sooner you can get that darn rule enforced, it'll make me happy.
Thank you so much. And Kathy Sullivan wants to talk to us about Keizer CERT.
Madam Mayor, City Council, distinguished staff, thank you for letting us have the time to speak. Giving you officer speak. Thank you.
So if we can, is the microphone just really low tonight or something?
Or maybe I don't have it in front of me.
There we go. Yeah, it's pretty dull tonight. But anyway, just your name and city of residence for the record, and the time is yours.
My name is Patrick. I'm a citizen of Keizer since 2008. So Keizer CERT is an organization, it's a national organization that's formed. It's organizations across the nation, but something that I really appreciate about it is that it's community-based, and it's of people within the community, citizens who volunteer to be a disaster solution to build back the city in immediate of a first response of a crisis. So one of the things that is our greatest mottos is that the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people. We're citizen volunteers taking our free time to learn and respond, to learn response skills in a disaster. The key training for us, for Keizer CERT, something that we try to have is a continuation of our learning and practicing our basic skills in communication, light medical, and reporting. Support civil servants as volunteer support, Keizer EM, fire and police, and public outreach and encouraging for family unit preparedness with such state programs like 2 Weeks Ready and such. I wanted to talk about us as a group. We are have an organization. We have an organizational chart. We have position narratives that we have together as a group to be so organizational chart for a leadership group, and I can pass this to you all if you want, and plus position narratives. As a cohesive group of response to work with the community as far as teaching neighborhoods about being prepared so that, one, they don't become an immediate burden to the city, but also that they have some sense of control in the plight that whatever disaster we may find ourselves in. So I wanted to ask, what I wanted to ask really is that Keizer CERT has been under Marion County for several years. We want to ask the Keizer, City of Keizer if that maybe we could, City of Keizer could find a way that maybe we can fall under the City of Keizer as opposed to Marion County, that we can be Keizer-based as opposed to answering to Marion County, but working with the City of Keizer. So I guess that's pretty much what I have. We were introduced with Tammy with the Keizer Neighborhood associations. I think that's great because it helps us to be embedded with the neighborhood association so that we can be that sort of neighborhood link between the city and the community as far as where they're at, as far as they're already organized. So and that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about and bring up for the city.
All right, thank you very much. Before I go to council questions, I'd like to talk to Mr. Brown about, because the emergency management plan and our partnership with Marion County Emergency Operations is through Mr. Brown and Mr. Lawyer is our emergency manager. I'm getting the wrong term here, but you call that guy. So that would be probably the appropriate level for a conversation about how CERT operates within Marion County and how it can operate within the city of Keizer. So I would like to refer to both of you to have that conversation and see what that structure looks like. Would that be acceptable? Mr. Brown?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we actually have Kathy Held from Keizer CERT attended our last emergency planning meeting. And so they are on the Keizer emergency management team. What we're trying to do is slot them into the spot on the committee that approves the emergency operations plan where EVAC used to be, but does not exist anymore. So you're already on for us. So I don't know how you get out from under Marion County other than just to tell them you're not.
Right.
It's falling under liability and such. We wanted to be under Keizer for liability reasons and stuff versus Marion County to be more ingrained with the city of Keizer.
We can look into that side of it.
Okay. And then partnership, I don't know where the fire districts, because, you know, as you both know, but many people in the community don't, we're covered by 2 fire districts, Keizer Fire District, Park Meadow South, Park Meadow-ish South, and then Marion County Fire District 1. So how that all interfaces as well, and possibly their roles in CERT for all of the neighborhoods in Keizer. So definitely follow up, Pride, Spirit, and Volunteers, and boy, that fits.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Carolyn Holman. And if we could press pause for just a second, because I have a question for the attorney, because the topic you want to talk about is item 8D, which is the contract for the pergola replacement. So, Mr. Johnson, the topic she wants to talk about is the one for which one of our city councilors has an actual conflict of interest. Do we want to talk about that now, or when we excuse the councilor and we have that conversation?
We can wait till the agenda item. The mayor is correct. We would normally do that at the beginning of the agenda item. So
Okay.
Councilor Duran will be issuing a declaration at that time.
Okay, so Ms. Holman, if you could hold for item 8D, and then we will be excusing Councilor Duran for that agenda item, and then we can take your testimony at that time. Would that be okay? So we could have that conversation separately.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, and that is everyone I have signed up for public comment. We're now going to go to our first public hearing for the evening. And that, our only public hearing for this evening, and that is a resolution certification of lighting district assessments. Public hearing is now open, and that goes to Mr. Johnson.
I drew this short straw and offered to Tim to do this tonight. Because Mr.
Teamwork.
Wood is out. This is an annual event, as some of you will know, maybe the newer councilors don't. The city has several lighting districts throughout, and the process is each year at this time to certify those lighting district assessments and send those to Marion County for assessments on the property taxes. As you can see in Tim's staff report, new subdivisions are required to do a lighting district as part of the development code. Some older existing subdivisions have come in and after, based on an agreement of the majority owners, assess themselves. Each year we go through a process to assess based on actual use, and we get reimbursed for the cost of those lighting districts and the power to those. So the resolution before you is certification of lighting district assessments. Attached to the cover resolution are the list of all the different lighting districts. So the recommendation is to move forward with adoption of that resolution, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on the staff report or the resolution? Is there anyone signed up for a public hearing? There is no one signed up for this public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the council on this lighting district assessment issue? Seeing none, anything further for council before I close the public hearing? Public hearing is now closed. Council President Starr.
I move the City Council adopt Resolution R2023, certification of lighting district assessments for fiscal year 2023-2024.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council, oops, where's that? Okay. I just lost that. Approve Resolution R 2023, the certification of lighting district assessments for 2023-2024. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed signify by saying no. Hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously. That concludes public hearings for this evening. We will now go to item 8A, which is an ordinance regulating dogs at large. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Mr. Johnson and I tag teamed on a lot of these items tonight. He may jump in at any point unexpectedly. The two items that the council discussed last week, or on June 5th when it was discussed, were the fine structure and the ADA exemption. So for the fine structure proposed is $50 for the first offense, $100 for the second, $200 for the third offense, and the maximum fine is $500, which I believe is statutory. The other change to the ADA was a solution by Mr. Johnson to insert the phrase, dogs that are allowed to be off leash under state or federal disability laws are exempt from this ordinance. However, the owner or custodian must have such dog under voice command. And Mr. Johnson can speak more to that if he wants, but he felt that covered all the ADA concerns. So with that, the revised ordinance is back in front of you for a second reading.
Actually, it's going to be I think it's first reading because it's a new one, correct? Okay.
Correct.
All right, any questions? Council President Starr.
I move that the City Council adopt Ordinance 2023 regulating dogs at large.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council adopt a bill for an ordinance regulating dogs at large. Discussion. Councilor Kohler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to reiterate that there is already a dog leash in the park, a dog leash rule in the park, in all the parks, that dogs need to be on leash except in the dog park itself. So this doesn't change that part of it.
Okay. And this actually adds to the spaces where leashes are required and control of those leashes. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying no. Motion passes unanimously. All right, let's go then to item 8B, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2020-812 prohibiting camping on sidewalks, public property, and public rights-of-way, declaring an emergency. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I won't go into depth on the staff. Can't hear me?
Yeah, the microphones on that seem to be not.
Hello?
There we go. Eat it.
Okay.
Now we can hear you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I won't go into depth on the staff report for purposes of the audience. I will touch the high points there. In the last several years, both due to federal case law and then the Oregon legislature under House Bill 3115, local jurisdictions need to change their regulations with regard to homelessness and being able to lie, sit, and sleep and keep warm and dry is the language in the statute on outdoors on public ground in some circumstances. It's not wide open. It's left to the cities to determine what's objectively reasonable, as I set forth in the staff report. After looking at this and discussing it internally, we have come up with an ordinance that amends the existing ordinance and allows for limited camping temporarily for 24 hours in very small portions of the right-of-way. We excluded, obviously, any travel lanes, the adjacent 5 feet to the travel lane, and a 5-foot clear path for public sidewalks for ADA and pedestrian purposes. In any event, I did want to point out a couple of items. One, if you look on the dais, there are 2 ordinances that on the first page look identical. If you turn to the second page and find red line, that is the one you should be looking at. If you don't have red line, switch ones. And for purposes of the audience, I will read this so it's in the record. Some suggested changes. And beginning at the bottom of page 2, line 25, subsection 4 there, subsection C4, reads currently within 100 feet of any school, church, or daycare facility. I would am recommending deleting church from that and adding a new number 5 that says within 100 feet of any church except for on property that is accommodating camping or camping-like activities under ORS 195.520. So an explanation on that. That was a suggestion from outside counsel. I'm not sure we have any of these available now, but there is a statute that allows vehicle camping on church grounds under certain restrictions. So this ad is a technical ad, if you will, to comply with that state law, if that should occur. We do have some input into that, by the way, so it's not automatic, but that could occur in the future, and this way we wouldn't have to change the ordinance. Going on to the next page, and I believe it was Councilor Starr that pointed this out, since I needed to make a change anyway. Thank you, Councilor Starr. The current version on page 3, line 17, sub H, currently reads, upon finding it being in the public interest, the city council may exempt a special event from compliance with the section. This is with regard to prohibited camping, by resolution. And the resolution specifies the period of time and location covered by the exemption. As Councilor Starr pointed out, and I had meant to make this change earlier, in certain circumstances, the time needed would be better in a time crunch for the city manager to have that delegated authority. So the current reading would read, upon finding it to be in the public interest, the city manager or city council may exempt a special event from compliance with this section. Period. The city manager or city council should specify the period of time and location covered by the exemption, as well as other reasonable conditions. And then another suggestion on the same page, sub I, from outside counsel, which is always true, but it's good to point these things out. And for the audience's sake, the section is on violations, and it reads, violations of this ordinance are infractions, and the violators may be cited under Keizer Civil Infraction Ordinance. The minimum fine is $50, the presumptive fine is $100, the maximum fine is $150. The suggestion is to add, that was in the packet that way, the suggestion is to add the additional sentence as follows. In lieu of or in addition to a fine, the judge may impose other measures consistent with ORS 153.008 that are reasonably calculated to aid the individual in not engaging in the conduct that led to the citation again in the future. And that is the end of the suggested changes. I know that some councilors have some concerns about the distance requirement. For purpose of the audience, there is a restriction listing 100, prohibiting 100 feet from any school or daycare facility or church for that matter. I am not too terribly concerned about that because there is a restriction on adjacent residential areas, and all of the Keizer schools are adjacent to residential areas. There may be some difference there, but I'm concerned about restricting it too much. That's an open council question for your policy making, so you can do that when you're in deliberation. If you allow me, I think I had one more note, if I could go to it. Oh, and the thing I was going to point out in the, with regard to the right-of-way issue, the proposed ordinance allows for limited camping temporarily in limited right-of-way areas, and they will be fairly limited. However, I wanted for the record to point out that the point-in-time count, and for the audience, the point-in-time count is the once-a-year count of homeless individuals. And in this case, it's unsheltered homeless. The last one done earlier this year was 7. The year before, I don't have a confirmed number, but it's pretty certain it was about 11. And the year before was 7. So the population that we have in Keizer is fairly limited. So I think it's justifiable that our areas of the right-of-way be limited too, because I don't think that there's a capacity problem there. That's yet to be seen, of course, but that was one concern that I had. However, I think due to that pit count, as they call it, the point-in-time count, I think that that's justifiable. I wanted to also point out that this is an amendment of our existing ordinance, Ordinance 2020-812, and that the findings in that ordinance are stay in effect. And I won't read through all of them, but I will mention one in particular that I would like to read, and that's finding K. And it says, the city of Keizer is a compassionate city and desires to help persons experiencing residential instability or homelessness to transition to safe and permanent housing. However, allowing camping on all the public sidewalks and public property does not help people transition to the housing, and has a detrimental effect on the economic vitality of the city and the public safety and welfare. So it's a balancing act, obviously, with regard to all this legislation and the crisis the entire state and country finds themselves in with regard to homelessness. We are trying to balance that in this case. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you there we go. Thank you very much. Are there any questions on the staff report? Council President Starr?
I move that the Keizer City Council adopt ordinance number 2023, amending ordinance number 2020-812, prohibiting camping on sidewalks, public property, and public rights-of-way, and declaring an emergency.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council adopt a bill for an ordinance 2023, amending ordinance number 2020-812, prohibiting camping on sidewalks, public property, and public rights-of-way, declaring an emergency.
Madam Mayor, that's as amended by the reading.
As amended. Does the mover accept?
I accept.
Second?
Yes.
So this is using the amended version that, with all of the changes that have been enumerated by the city attorney. I do want to make one statement, and it goes along with our original intent, that Keizer prioritizes the health, safety, and well-being of all people in our community. Keizer has taken positive action for effective services and facilities for people for whom housing and homelessness are issues they are facing, particularly our involvement with the ORS 190 governmental body associated with the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance, a HUD-recognized continuum of care, OR-504. In addition, Keizer has continued to implement state land use mandates to maximize density, mixed use, and utilizing the land within the urban growth boundary as fully and compactly as possible. Most rights-of-way are not appropriate for camping purposes due to safety issues, and the state and federal disability laws which prohibit blocking pedestrian and wheelchair access. I just want that statement out there so people know what we are about. Anything further? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying no.
No.
Motion passes 6-1 with no from Councilor Cross. So this will come back for a second reading in 2 weeks.
Correct.
All right. Thank you very much. That will take us to, I'll keep this handy. Back of my page, that's what I'm looking for. Item 8C, a resolution authorizing the city manager and chief of police to sign 2023-2026 collective bargaining agreement with the Keizer Police Association. Mr. Brown? Or is this Mr. Johnson? Or, oh, it's Michelle.
It's Ms. DePina.
It is. Ms. DePina.
Madam Mayor and Council, the city's collective bargaining agreement with the Keizer Police Association is set to expire on June 30th, so 10 days from now. City of Keizer and KPA, Keizer Police Association, bargaining began with the first session in January, and we've met 7 times with the last meeting on June 7th. Members of the executive leadership team met with the city council in executive session prior to bargaining in January, again for a status update in April, and then finally this afternoon in preparation for this evening's recommended resolution. At this point, the city has been informed of KPA's agreement to accept the city's last offer. That was presented on June 9th, and on June 20th, again, we discussed the elements of the proposal during exec session. There is a strategic financial impact of approximately $375,000 and compensation costs in excess of the 2023-24 adopted budget. And it is important from a timing perspective for immediate approval because of the fact that the current CBA is expiring in 10 days. We have a lot of administrative work to do in those 10 days. So our recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution, authorizing the city manager and chief of police to sign the 326 collective bargaining agreement with the Keizer Police Association based on the attached tentative agreements. The alternative would be to choose not to authorize the signature and direct the city to continue bargaining with the KPA. Lack of an agreement after 150 days of good faith negotiations may result in a request for mediation. And if an impasse, a final determination being made by an arbitrator who'd select one of two last best offer packages, a road we do not want to go down. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions for Ms. DePina? All right, thank you very much. Council President Starr.
I move the City Council adopt Resolution R2023, authorizing the city manager and the chief of police to sign the attached 2023 to 2026 collective bargaining agreement with the Keizer Police Association.
Second?
So it's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council adopt Resolution R 2023, authorizing the city manager and chief of police to sign the 2023-26 collective bargaining agreement with the Keizer Police Association. There was a change in language. Ms. DePina, what was that modification?
When I spoke, I said based on the attached tentative agreements at the end of that sentence. So rather than in the staff report, it says sign the attached collective bargaining agreement, it would be sign the bargaining agreement based on the attached tentative agreements.
Does the mover accept that change?
Yes.
Second,
Yes.
accept the change. It has been amended as recommended. Thank you very much for that. Anything further? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed signify by saying no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Appreciate your work. Everybody's work on this, this effort. We will now go to item 8D, resolution authorizing the city manager to award and enter into an agreement with Remodeling by Classic Homes, Inc. for Civic Center trellis repair. Mr. Johnson.
Madam Mayor, I believe Mr. Lawyer is going to give the staff report, but Councilor Duran had a statement to make.
Thank you. Councilor Duran.
Yeah, I'd like to declare an actual conflict of interest. The nature of the conflict is that I am president and sole owner of Remodeling by Classic Homes, Inc., and therefore have a pecuniary interest in the outcome of this matter. I recuse myself on this issue and will refrain from any discussion, debate, or voting on this agenda item.
All right, thank you very much. All right. So that will go then to Mr. Lawyer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. This is before Council tonight because staff solicited bids for this project through the formal bidding process, working with McKinsey, the architect group, did the design and the specifications. The result of that public bidding process was no bids were received. So we took a step back, tried to figure out what to do next. The architects reached out to some firms they had worked with previously, none of which were interested in taking on for them a small project like this. Considered options, alternatives, a way to try to get this accomplished. Visited with the city attorney. He indicated that I was able to just reach out to a contractor of my choice, if you will, to see if I could find somebody interested in doing the work. Talked with Classic Homes, Remodeling by Classic Homes, indicated they would take a look at it. Took, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, 5 months to put a bid together. Got us a quote, and not too long after that, I basically blindly received a quote from a contractor that the architect had worked with previously. His bid was about $40,000 higher than the one received by Remodeling by Classic Homes. And so in the interest of trying to get the project done for the least cost, recommended proceeding with entering into a contract with Remodeling by Classic Homes to complete the project. At this point, options are to approve the contract or not approve it and go back out and see if I can find one. Knowing now what the numbers are, I think I would probably go back through the public bidding process, spend the funds to have the architects put together another package, pay the advertising fees, go through that process one more time, see if there's any takers. There has been a significant amount of time that's gone by now, probably about, well, that I see, open bids or bids were due, August of '22, so not quite a year. Other than that, I would just reach out to other contractors and see if they're interested in giving us a quote if we don't approve this contract.
Okay.
The trellises are in need of repair, and as each day, week, month goes by, they get worse. The wood's rotting. They're not unsafe yet, but they will become unsafe at some point. The one for the City Hall facility does cover, a portion of it covers the employee entrance area. So there is some impact there. The police department one is, I'll say, for their break area and also a door into, I believe it's parole area. So there is public access there. So we need to address this at some point before they become unsafe.
Right. Thank you very much. Questions on the staff report? I'm going to go to Councilor Cross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What was the original budget on this? Because this is before.
The original number when this was bid was, well, the original discussion from the very beginning back in about 2018, this is how long this has been going on, was $100,000. As the specs were written, the plans were developed, the architects increased that to about $120,000. That was their, quote, estimate when it was bid in '22. I think that was just an error on their part. I think they were hoping for a lower number, but the economy, the construction industry indicates that that number was low, really low.
So did we have this as a project for our last fiscal year?
Yes, it's been included in the budget for at least 3 budget cycles now.
Okay, thank you.
These are ARPA funds, correct?
I believe so, yes. The
That's what I
contract is
recall.
put together as though they're ARPA funds.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Council President Starr?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to follow up, can you help me understand why, if it's been in the budget for 3 years, we haven't done it until now? And then what happens if we just remove them and don't have them?
Okay. It's been in the budget for 3 years because there was delays in getting the architect firm to finish the specifications and the design. That's part of the delay. Some of that was on them, some of that was on me by not pushing them, okay? And then it's been almost a year now since the bids were due and none were received. Could they be removed? Yes, they could be removed. The downside is there's no covered area for employees to take a break outside of the building.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Reed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to clarify, in the first bid, what was the police station areas, was that included in that first $100,000 estimate, or was that added subsequently?
No, that was all part of the original package, yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted that clarified. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Husband?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Lawyer, I can't in good conscience vote on this. This to me is a breach of ethics to ask the city council to personally enrich a sitting member of the city council. I appreciate you walking through how it is that we got to this point, but I do not think this is acceptable behavior and I cannot endorse this.
So, okay. We're going to be down 2 on the vote. Councilor Kohler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Having done a little building project in the last couple of years myself, I was shocked at the cost of a sheet of plywood, let alone the huge beams that we have there. And as you and I have looked at those over the years and saw how it's rotting and the safety issues that were there, it is something that we do need to get done. I applaud you for the reaching out to so many people, as many people as you have, to try to find a contractor to do such a small project in an era where contractors are scarce. And I applaud remodeling by Classic Homes to even look at that and take on such a good job, a small job, comparatively speaking.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? Councilor Cross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know we're talking about two separate areas, but don't the employees in both those areas have beautiful break rooms?
Both areas have very nice indoor break areas. Yes, they do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And public, these also include public access areas, so it's not just employee break areas, so the front and back doors, or front doors in both wings as well will be impacted. Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm kind of hearing the possibility of just taking these down altogether and not replacing them. How much would the demolition cost be?
That's a good question because all the bids were put together to save the roofing and just replace the vertical structural members and the exposed wood members. Off the top of my head, I'm going to say it's probably with a contractor to come in and just remove them. I'm going to say $50,000, but that's just an educated guess at this point. I really don't know for sure. In the cost of labor and the cost of construction these days, I could be low, I could be high. I really don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Did you follow up?
No, but I have a different question, so.
Okay. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask Ms. DePina, who kind of has her finger on the pulse of the employees and their well-being. Are these areas well used? Would this be something that you would recommend perpetuating as far as what we offer our employees?
Thank you, Mayor, Councilor Reed. I would say that one of the things that we do on a regular basis with our health and wellness program is encourage employees to get outside. And on a regular basis, employees do go out to the patio area, and because of the weather that we have in Oregon and in our area, sometimes that means to go out for fresh air means you're underneath the trellis area, so you're not getting soaking wet. So from that perspective, I would say our employees would probably be sad if the trellises were removed completely. And I expect some of them would also question it being taken away from the kind of overall design of the building because it's part of the architectural design of the building. And I know that doesn't sound like a health and wellness thing, but it is something that some of our employees would pay attention to.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any further questions before I go to Ms. Holman? Mr. Lawyer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may, just to follow up to Councilor Reed's question and Michelle's response, there are employees that do use the outside area, at least here at City Hall, I can speak to specifically, on warm days as well. They'll sit, this building can get cold from the air conditioning at times, and staff will sit out there at the tables and bring their laptop and work outside, make phone calls and do work outside on the patio to warm up before they come back into the air conditioning. So it's not just during rain events.
Right. Okay, thank you. Councilor Cross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So follow-up question is, if you were roughhousing it and we took off the trellis, it would be about half the cost of rebuilding them?
I would think they could both be done for about half the cost safely. Yes, I would be comfortable stating that. Yes.
Okay, and I mean, the way that I'm processing this, and I'm still listening, is that, yes, I mean, I wish that everybody had a break room with a beautiful trellis, but at the end of the day, I think it's our fiduciary responsibility to put it all in perspective.
So a question to go with that. The roof comes off. It's not just the trellises. When you're talking demolition, you're talking about because the structures holding up the roof would be removed. Therefore, that section of roof would have to be removed.
That's correct.
Okay, so it's more
and,
than...
And those roofs are attached to a vertical block wall. The roof is only for that area. I want to just make clear so we understand what we're talking about. It's not a roof of the building.
Right.
It's a roof of the area.
Okay, so it is separate from, but there would be roofing material that would be removed, as
Yes.
well as just, so it's not trellises, it's the roofing and the vertical pieces that are needing, well, the vertical pieces that support that roof have
Yes.
failed, and they need to be replaced in order to retain having a covered area, both over those entrances and those two outdoor employee areas. Is that
That's correct. That is correct.
Councilor Starr, Council President Starr.
Thank you. And just to clarify, we're not replacing this with wood. We're replacing it with steel, which is, in theory, going to not be a problem in the future. Yes?
That is correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood that staff report, that this should mitigate any future issues.
That is correct. And I have to say, I reached out to the design firm, McKinsey, that designed this facility to begin with early on. And this has been more than 2018, earlier than 2018, to express my displeasure and concern and disappointment in their design of those structures and how poor it was that we had wood rotting less than 10 years in, and hope that they would provide some assistance to the city in having those replaced. And much to my displeasure, I don't think we received much assistance at all. So, but I felt as though it was still less expensive to use them, who had all the plans, all the specs, all the structural information in their files to put together a plan to replace them with.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Reed.
Thank
And
you,
then
Matt.
Mr. Brown.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So it seems to me that there's a couple of ways of looking at it. One is just a building maintenance perspective. You know, this building has been built, and it's a wonderful building that serves many purposes. And our community investment in this building includes part of those maintenance costs. And this is, I mean, the carpet's been replaced, other things have needed to be replaced over the years, and this is part of that whole. So that's one way of looking at it. What I'm hearing from is the other way of looking at it is this is an employee perk that may or may not be justified by public funds. And so I just kind of want to differentiate those two perspectives and what we're looking at here. Am I wrong in that, or is that too simplistic?
no, I don't think you're wrong in any way. It's not simplistic. I would say it's premature, heavy maintenance of the facility. It was not anticipated to have, I guess, as I know or expect in this climate, in this region, anything wood exterior is going to have to be replaced at some point. That's just the way it is. You can paint it, you can stain it, you can seal it, and ultimately at some point it's going to fail. It's wood, it rots. In this case, as I mentioned earlier, it was just way premature, way earlier than it should have lasted. So, but from a overall building maintenance standpoint, yes, it's building maintenance. It's just way earlier than it should be, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kohler, and then I'm going to go to Ms. Holman.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I would like to go to Mr. Brown, and then I'll go to you, Councilor Kohler.
No worries.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Brown.
Thank you. I wanted to emphasize too, it wouldn't be just demolition, but replacing the facade for that part of the building. But I also thought Mr. Pina made a good point that I wanted to make too, is that this is a design that is part of the overall building, which is the Civic Center, which is the community center where folks come. Many community center events are here, especially, are built with cantilevered roofs for rain cover. So while it's, you could say it's not necessary, I think it does fit in with the overall design of how this was built. And the facility is a symbol of what your community, at least the Athenians and the Grecians used to believe, that their public facilities were a sign of their community.
Thank you very much. Councilor Kohler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's much more than just an employee area. When we do our Civic Center cleanup every year, we use that area for a lot of things. We serve drinks there. We have served food there. So it's not just an employee area. It's used for public also.
Thank you very much. Ms. Holman, I would invite you up at this time to present the public testimony that you graciously allowed us to delay to this point.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. In reference to this agenda item, I just have a request in the interest of transparency and to avoid the appearance of favoritism. I mean, since a council member is involved and has recused himself. But I hope the city will release the names of the other contractors contacted to bid on this project. And then when there were no bids, the follow-up, if it's possible. I just think it's important in this kind of an issue. I mean, it may seem like a small project, but when you talk about $250,000 nearly to public, a lot of people don't think that's a small project. And if it is, it's part of the design of the building, it's an important thing. People would notice it for sure. And I just think with the job potentially going to a fellow counselor, his business, the more information that can be shared with the public, the better in this interest. And it's a request. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate that request, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
And again, thank you for your graciousness. Mr. Lawyer, is that something that could be released?
Yes, I can. Well, I need to reach out to the architect firm and see what they have in their records on who they reached out to. I certainly have records on who I reached out to.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's public record as far as I'm concerned, nothing to hide.
Thank you. That would be helpful, and I appreciate the perception for the community that they know that contractors were reached out to in order to see if we could solicit bids. And there isn't an agency in this region that I'm aware of that hasn't had failed bids or difficulty getting contractors over the last 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Councilor Kohler, and then I'm going to go to Council President Starr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick follow-up. Ms. Holman, when I first looked at this, I was concerned myself, and I got, okay, what's the deal here? But I was able to talk to Mr. Lawyer, Mr. Johnson, and several other people to find out what the procedure was, and it helped me understand where we were a lot more. And I think you probably feel a little more comfortable about it now, knowing what the procedure was that we followed. But I'm pretty sure that the information you're looking for is readily available, because it was available to me.
So Mr. Lawyer is going to make that information available in the follow-up to this item. Council President Starr?
Thank you. I move the City Council approve Resolution 2023, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with remodeling by Classic Homes, Inc. for the Civic Center trellis repair project.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council authorize the city manager to award and enter into an agreement with Remodeling by Classic Homes, Inc. for Civic Center trellis repair. Further discussion, and I'm going to go down the line. Anything further, Councilor Reed?
I don't have anything further, thank you.
Councilor Kohler?
No, thank you.
Council President Starr?
No, thank you.
Councilor Cross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few things when, yes, there are two different, I agree with Councilor Reed, of ways of looking at it. I would say learning moment, hopefully that we can, when we're investing in this beautiful building, that we're not waiting until it all falls apart and it's rotting, and that we're working on that, on a maintenance type calendar. And I will say, yeah, I love this building, and I love Councilor Duran, but I have kind of gone into these council meetings that give me the reason to say yes, and I just don't have that reason today.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed signify by saying no.
No.
Abstentions?
Yeah.
So motion passes with 1, 2, 3, 4 yes, 1 no. Counselor Cross, abstention, Counselor Duran, absence, Counselor Husman. Okay. That takes us to the consent calendar. Council President Starr, would you please read the items on tonight's consent calendar?
I move that we adopt the consent calendar as follows. Item A, resolution authorizing the city manager and public works director to enter into an intergovernmental agreement for right-of-way services, Verta Lane to Dearborn Avenue to Salem Parkway in Keizer. Item B, approval of the May 25th, 2023 special session minutes. And item C, approval of the June 5th, 2023 regular session minutes.
Second?
The consent calendar has been moved and seconded. I didn't get a chance to ask if there are any polls. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed signify by saying no. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Other business, this time is provided to allow the mayor, city council members, or staff an opportunity to bring new or old matters before the council that are not on tonight's agenda. Mr. Brown, are there any items for other business this evening from the staff?
We have no items for other business.
All right, thank you very much. Council, any other items for other business this evening? All right, we will go on then to staff updates. Ms. DePina, are there any staff updates from you?
I would only say that our chief of police recruitment closes at the end of this week.
Right, thank you very much.
We're looking forward to lots of great applications.
Thank you. Mr. Brown.
Would announce that we have hired the deputy city recorder to replace Debbie Lockhart, and it's Dawn Wilson from our finance department. So she'll slide into that role next week when Melissa Bissett also begins.
All right, thank you very much, and congratulations all around. Ms. Davis.
Thank you. I do have a couple things. Since this is the last meeting that I will be sitting in the seat before Melissa comes next week, I just wanted to extend my appreciation to the city, my coworkers, and the awesome citizens that always appear. So thank you.
Tracy, thank you.
Thank you. I'm very honored. It's been a great ride for 30 plus years. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. You can always decide to not retire.
And a great mentor that she will have, and so many other city recorders across this nation have enjoyed the work that you have done, the service to our cities across our region. When they've disasters struck, you have helped them put together their records. You have helped them just through so many challenges that cities have faced, and you've impacted more than Keizer. You've impacted our region, our state, and apparently city recorders nationwide. Thank you, Tracy. Chief.
Thought I'd mention, since it came up the last council meeting, that checked with our traffic safety unit and discovered that, or affirmed, I should say, that they do check the handicap parking spaces on a regular basis. It is not a sort of emergency issue. I'll use that word for lack of any other, because they almost invariably find 100% compliance. They've checked since 2 different times, checked 75 cars one time, 80 cars the next. Again, almost 100% compliance, issued 1 citation. The reason I bring it up here is because what I didn't know and learned from them is that having the placard on your dashboard is sufficient. It doesn't have to be hanging from your mirror. And so most of the public may not realize that. When they don't see it hanging from the mirror, they may think that those people are parking illegally, but invariably in Keizer, they've had them on their dashboard.
Thank you for checking. Really appreciate that. Mr. Lawyer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one thing tonight. I want to invite the council and the public to Public Works Day this Thursday, Keizer Rapids Park from 10 to 2. We have various vendors out there. We'll have tacos available to the first 300 guests. Hopefully it lasts more than 45 minutes. In one way, I hope it doesn't last more than 45 minutes. That means we had a great turnout. But everybody come out. It should be a great time. Weather should be good. Lots to see, lots to touch, feel, talk about, and learn.
All right, thank you very much. Looking forward to it. Mr. Witham,
Nothing this evening.
thank you very much. Mr. Johnson.
Madam Mayor, I was not sure I'd passed on a word about this. I did to the Planning Commission. You may recall the climate-friendly and equitable communities litigation that is at the Court of Appeals. We did get a date for the oral argument on that. If I hadn't passed that on, it's July 12th, which is very expedited. So we were encouraged by that. I don't want to guess at when a decision would come out. We are hoping by the end of the year, certainly, but could be earlier than that, could be a little later. So I'll keep the council updated on that.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, council member reports. Councilor Cross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. June 7th, I attended the Keizer Chamber No Luncheon. On June 8th, the Latino Business Alliance Pan Dulce. And then that same night, I attended the Oregon Restaurant Lodging Association One Big Night Auction in Portland. June 12th, I attended the Salem Chamber Business Annual Lunch Forum with awards. Keizer Chamber Board meeting on the 14th. Keizer Rotary Luncheon on the 15th. Sedcor Golf Tournament on the 16th, and then today I attended the YMCA Governance Committee, which I'm a part of.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. Councilor Duran.
I have nothing. I was on vacation the last week and a half, so.
What?
Everybody took over for me, so thank you, Dan, for Planning Commission.
All right, well, welcome back. Council President Starr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was also out of town for business, so a very light schedule. I'd like to thank Councilor Cross for covering Latino Business Alliance and Councilor Reed for covering, no, Councilor Kohler, sorry, Councilor Reed. Councilor Kohler covered the library meeting for me, and Councilor Reed covered the volunteer coordinating committee. So thank you for covering, and congratulations to everyone on a great 40th birthday party.
Thank you very much. Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of things. I went to a library board meeting. I got to learn all kinds of neat things. They're looking for a bookkeeper for 4 hours a month. If somebody has some experience with QuickBooks and wants to volunteer with the library, that would be great. They've applied for a couple different grants, and we talked about a recipe for something. But anyway, Keizer United was on the 12th. Just a couple of notes. The Hospital Education Center has some resources for some food and things, in addition to the Claggett Creek curbside pickup Monday and Wednesday for lunches for kids, and diabetes and cholesterol screening. There's a free screening Saturday, and this Saturday, the 24th, and next month on the 23rd of September. Well, excuse me, not next month, 23rd of September, I'll give this to Tracy, that can be added to a community event thing. And of course, the executive section on the 12th. The 13th is greeters sponsored by the city. Thank you to Lily and the event center team for a lot of fun there. And then 13th, the Parks Board. They did a great tribute to Debbie. That was really nice to see. And then they did it again on the Planning Commission the next night. And then we had a little party here, some kind of party, on the 16th and 17th. I want a special thank you to some members of the committee, Tammy Kuntz, and the several members of the Northeast Keizer Neighborhood Association, Benita Picasso. Those people particularly went way out of their way, along with Robin from the Keizer Times.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for all the support, and everybody that came, I think, had a good time. Thank you for making that all happen. I also want to say that Tim Wood was really, really helpful for all that. There were a couple of times there were some conflicts. I found out that the gazebo had been promised for a birthday party on Saturday, and he goes, oh, and he took care of it. So there were a number of things that could have gone south, but because of some people's extra hard work and willingness to serve, it all turned out. Thank you very much.
Yes, it did indeed. Had a great time. And Councilor Kohler, Councilor Reed, who headed this up with the Community Diversity Engagement Committee, and so many community volunteers, Robin Barney, Rockstar, Tammy, and so many people that were here all weekend. Thank you so much for that effort. And Keizer likes to have a good time together. Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to continue on that vein for just a little bit. In addition to the thanks that have definitely already been brought forth, I also wanted to thank Lily Vaughn and Nolan and her team for just not only making accommodations for everything we asked for, but also anticipating things that we didn't know we needed, and just her expertise in coordinating all of that was really invaluable. And in addition, Debbie and Tracy, their hands were in that as they are in everything. So thank you very much for all your contributions there. And Bill Lawyer and your team, fantastic. Bill was out of town that weekend, but even so, he had, we had sort of preliminary conversations a long time ago, and he had not only followed through on a lot of those requests, but anticipated our every need. So thank you very much, and thank you for your team as well. Valor Mentoring also did a really good job of manning the sound system for the outdoor gazebo. That was quite a larger undertaking than we had anticipated, and they stepped up and did a really fantastic job with that. And then also the Keizer Heritage Foundation opened up the Cultural Center, and they all had different activities going on. The library had a scavenger hunt going on around that building. The Homegrown Theater had a karaoke party. The Keizer Art Association had a group of different artists demonstrating their craft. And that was really interesting to go through and see all of that. And so just really appreciate all of their efforts as well. And the Keizer Times scavenger hunt that the video or the pictorial scavenger hunt that they sponsored was also a great success. So again, huge thank you to Robin Richmond Barney and the Keizer Times in their support and help with that. And it just did take so many, and just really appreciate all of the efforts of everyone and the support. We had a lot of the city staff come and just have fun with the party, and just, again, really appreciate the support from all corners. Just a couple of highlights that I wanted to mention. I won't take too long on this, but a couple of things that were really highlights were we had a ceremony honoring the former city councilor and former mayors, and our own mayor, Kathy Clark, did a fantastic job. She knew everyone personally and knew all their stories personally, and made that just a really special basically history of the city, and it was just really impressive. Her efforts with that were truly impressive, and again, the knowledge and investment in blood, sweat, and tears you have given over the years has been greatly appreciated, and that was very clear there. And the other thing that was really an exciting highlight was the dedication of Roseleek's cows. This was cool. We had put this in here, not thinking it was going to be a huge deal. We decided to dedicate the cows here at the Civic Center rather than the roundabout for obvious traffic reasons, not the least of which they're not ready to be installed yet. But nevertheless, we decided that it would be best to do that here. And so we did that as part of the indoor the programming for the indoor stage. And Mayor Lori Christopher was key in putting that together in many respects, but what was really exciting was the whole Herber family I'll say the whole, but a
About
pretty
20.
large contingent of the Herbert Moore family showed up in celebration of that to honor Rosalie and not only her, you know, the cows obviously, but her contribution as a pioneer in Keizer. And Mayor Christopher made a really good foundation for that. It wasn't until the very end of that we found out that they were all there and who they were, and it was just kind of a magical moment that we exploited for the honoring of Keizer. So that was also a big highlight. Lots of fun was had by all, thanks to the vendors who showed up. The Keizer Fire Department and the Public Works Department and the Police Department had vehicles over there. And that was a lot of fun. We had the sidewalk chalk going on and just so many things. So thank you to all who contributed.
Thank you. Yeah, we had music from reggae to the Keizer Community Band to Celtic dancers, and but the look on Mayor Christopher's face when she realized that everybody sitting along the wall is about 20, 25 people. She goes, "You're all Herbers." They all went, "Uh-huh." The last of Rosalie's children, Tyree. She had arranged for and let them all know, and it was down to the 5th generation that were present. Kid, you know, her grandkids, great and great-greats, who were there to tell stories on the matriarch of that family and how special that space was, but also how much they appreciated celebrating, and I quote, Rosalie's, and she always called them, "my silly cows." So it was just a fun time. And again, thank you to everybody who came, had a wonderful time during the day and a half of celebration of Keizer. So when we're 50, you know, at the 50-year mark, we'll do it again.
Somebody else will do it again.
Somebody else will do it again. Yes, indeed. Just a couple things to add to wrap up tonight. The Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments Budget Committee met, and actually we approved the budget today at the board meeting. The legislative committee, I've been bringing you updates from the legislative work. I wanted to let you know one of the bills that a concept we supported on the legal side, a letter that we sent in to our district attorney requiring to have the Oregon State Hospital not release people early who were not ready to aid and assist in their own defense. House Bill 2405 has passed and is being sent to the Senate, and we are hoping that will pass to help us both in this jurisdiction, but also statewide with individuals who are being released unable to aid and assist in their own defense, and they're certainly not able to aid and assist in their own self-care when they're released from the state hospital, but that they will be sent back to their county of jurisdiction to be taken care of by their community and taken care of more comprehensively than just turn loose and say good luck, which is very inhumane as far as I'm concerned. So I'm happy to get that news. A little tidbit for those who are in favor of self-serve. House Bill, self-serve fuel. I should be specific. House Bill 3260 has passed and is on its way to the Senate as well, which will allow self-serve at River Runs gas station in Detroit. There we go. We're making progress. I wanted to congratulate the new Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance Executive Director, the very first employee for the Homeless Alliance, that's Elaine Lozier. She comes from Pacific Source. She has a tremendous background for someone as young as she is in public health and public administration, and she's going to be a tremendous asset to the Homeless Alliance and the work we're doing in our 2-county area. You've already heard about traffic safety bike ped. I was able to swap in for Councilor Hussman, who had a schedule conflict that evening and had a wonderful conversation. And I'm very happy to hear about moving forward with some of the planning for projects that are much needed in our community. Last Friday, I got to tour the new C-Tech Aviation. So the Career Technical Education Center, they have a drone program at the Portland Road facility. It is being moved out to a hangar that was purchased by the school district, which is very close to my office at the Oregon Department of Aviation. And that is being converted not only for the drones, but also for aviation. We're talking pilot and flight mechanic training right there at CTEC. And this will prepare students to enter careers for training in both as flight mechanics as well as pilots. So congratulations to CTEC, and that is already fully subscribed. They have a waiting list for that program, as they do for almost every other program at CTEC, which, by the way, they just had graduation. 100% graduation of CTEC students. Congratulations. At Coffee with Kathy, that's the monthly program I do online. It was before the 40th birthday, and I was able to welcome to Coffee with Kathy, Chrissy Hudson, who will be our new Zone 6 representative to the school board. So on that program, you can hear from the fire district, school district, Chemeketa Community College, our Chamber of Commerce, Pastor Dominguez from the community, and myself. So I encourage you to download that program off of Facebook and Keizer 23 and get caught up on what's happening around the region. And finally, last night, I was able to attend the NAACP Freedom fundraiser and scholarship event. It was a wonderful event. Thank you to Chemeketa Community College for providing the Eola campus and Viticulture Center as the location for that wonderful event, celebrating Juneteenth, and so many of our young people who participated, including a McNary student who was performed the Lift Every Voice and Sing at the beginning of the program, and that was Jasmine Mendoza. So beautiful voice and a proud Celtic, world-class Celt, McNary Celt. So that was a wonderful event. Coming up, just so you all know, Public Works Day was mentioned, and we will be, the celebration of life for one of our former city councilors, Dr. Mike Gaynor, who passed away a couple of weeks ago, will be on July 1st from 1 to 4 at Scenic Valley Vineyards, and people are invited to come and remember and pay respects to a tremendous community member, a city council member, Rotarian, fisherman, and just all around tremendous human being, and he will be sorely missed. That is all I have this evening. On agenda input, July 3rd, we'll meet in regular session starting at 7 p.m. July 10th, we have a work session, and I don't think we've set what our topic is, but that might be that opportunity to do a review of Keizer Station Master Plan, because we have city councilors, most of whom got on city council after that was done, and just get an overview of what Keizer Station is about. Why do we talk about area A, B, C, and D? Some of the original and how we've gotten to where we're at. Is that something that could be, it's just to make sure that we're all talking the same language. Not everybody has been on here as long as I have, and remember those fun days. What do you think, Mr. Witham?
Yeah, we can talk about it.
All right. We got a lot of questions when we were doing the Area D adjustments, and then I realized I got questions from Councilor Cross and Council President Starr. They're going, we don't know this background. And I thought, well, that's fair. Why would they? So we're going to have more conversations about Area B and Area C coming up, and it's good if we're all on the same page. So that's the purpose. And I thought we did something, a work session that is informational, but we're not going to be making huge decisions tomorrow, but probably the day after that. Okay, so that would be on July 10th at 6 p.m. And then we will meet again in regular session on July 17th in regular session at 7 p.m. That is all I've got. Is there anything else for the good of the order? All right, folks, the time is 9:36 and we are adjourned. Thank you all.